Hello and welcome to Legal Bites. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we explain the law one bite at a time. We don't give legal advice, but we do talk about how the law works and try to look into our crystal ball to see how things might turn out. If you're enjoying this on YouTube, we'd love it if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with friends, all the great YouTube-y stuff. And if you want to listen while out and about, we're now offering our live streams in podcast form where you can leave a rating and review. Links are in the description below, as well as to our clips channel where you can find some of the best clips taken from our live streams. Otherwise, if you want to catch me elsewhere, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so on Locals, Patreon, or by becoming a YouTube member, or by buying some really awesome Legal Bites merch. Again, all links are in the description below. And with that said, let's get into it. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday. Things are just kind of bumping along this week. I don't know if you've got, I see some folks that have been in the chat so far this week. And happy to see you guys back. I think there's some new folks as well, and I'm very happy to see that as well. So I just wanted to start off by saying hi to some folks here. Pamela C, good morning. Fun times, good morning. B says, happy Wednesday, everyone. Let's see. We've got Wolf Rebel says, good morning. We've also got Hez 01. Here we go. Ginger Haynes, good morning. Madeline Personstem, hi from a sunny Sweden. Oh, sunny. That's good. That's good. Yulia T from Latvia. Happy to see you here. Sonia Orr from New Jersey. We've got Monica Korpinen from Sweden. Peace, I think Peace Dog. I love that profile picture. Peace Dog, good morning. Kate Leslie says hi from Asheville, North Carolina. Milena Ronchetti from Switzerland. Marie Go Round. Now that I figured out that it's a play on words, your name. I appreciate you explaining that to me last time. Hi, hello. 5 from the Netherlands. Cheerful Bacon from Blaine, Washington. Yes. I was going to say Wisconsin, but no, that's WI. Happy to see you here. And Cheerful Bacon just sounds like a delightful morning, doesn't it? Vonnie Sunny from Poland. Hi. Pamela C from Arizona. One time. Hi from the UK. All right. And we've got some more. Oh, we've got Shireen from coastal Yorkshire. And let's get one more. Mountain Princess 207. Good morning from Maine. Awesome. All right, you guys. I'm so happy to see all of you guys here in the chat. Some folks engaging. We've got some mods already here. I'd love to see that as well. I'm very, very excited. So for those of you who have been a little bit in the know here, we've got some newly scheduled stuff that we're going to be doing throughout the week, and every week. So Mondays, we've got classic trials. I'm calling it season 1 is where we're going through the trial of the Menendez brothers. So fascinating stuff already. We just did the opening statements for Lyle Menendez, one of the brothers. Eric Menendez will be next Monday. We're going to have Rob was with me on Monday. Next week, I'm expecting to see some other folks with me. We might even have some people dressing up for the 90s with me this time. We'll see. We'll see if people get into it. but I'm so excited to be going through that because I've never actually watched that trial myself. And so being able to go through it as a lawyer, kind of calling balls and strikes and whatnot, is fascinating. So if you guys are interested in that, be sure to check out the first installment that we did on Monday. It was like 2.5 hours or something like that, going through the opening statements and everything. And so that's basically what to expect on Mondays on this channel. Starting at noon East Coast time is going to be the trial in basically like 2 to 3 hour chunks is what I'm looking to do. And it's going to be a long-term project because there's a lot. There's that trial goes on for a long time. So that's that. Then Tuesdays, we've still got legal tea going through kind of headlines and news and things like that. Similar to Thursday where we've got latest in the law. Wednesdays, today we've got our first Wednesday deep dive. So where we're taking something that is kind of related to some of the other stuff that we've been talking about and, on this channel, some of the cases and whatnot, and sort of that's maybe not specifically law, but it's somehow related that can kind of help to give us some context to some of the other stuff that we're talking about so that we can be kind of, relatively well informed, on on these various topics, especially because in this particular case we're talking about Scientology, and this is something that is going to be playing some kind of a role in the trial of Danny Masterson. We don't know exactly how big of a role it'll play, but it is going to play some kind of a role, and I'll get a little bit more into that in just a second. But I want to make sure that I finish going through the the new schedule, right? It's on all the banners and everything, so you can see everything. But on Fridays, I've also got members only live streams. So folks that are members, either YouTube members, supporters on Locals, or supporters on Patreon, will have access to the live streams on Fridays, where we just kind of like it's a bit more of a casual kind of hangout. Sometimes talking about law, sometimes maybe some other topics that I'm not certain if there's enough interest, like channel wide, but or something like that, or sometimes maybe not even necessarily strictly law, just kind of hanging out. So if you guys are interested in that, consider becoming a member or a supporter on any of those 3 platforms. And yeah, we'll go on with that. So let me get back to this particular topic that we've got today. So it's funny because every time I've sort of mentioned that I'm interested in talking about Scientology on the channel, people are like, "Oh, be careful," because there is a little bit of notoriety or reputation, I could say, that surrounds Scientology as an organization, right? Because people that tend to talk about it, to talk, speak negatively about it, especially, tend to notice that their lives are becoming more difficult in various ways. It's a practice that's called fair game. That is, something that the people, most notably people who have left the Church of Scientology and then become very outspoken about the Church of Scientology, have talked quite a bit about, is saying that they have there are certain practices that have been employed to intimidate them, to make their lives very difficult, to embarrass them, to like I said, intimidate, sometimes even cause violence to them or their family or their pets, to ostracize them in all kinds of different ways. So I definitely understand some of the concern that some people have had when I said that I was going to talk about this. What I will say is that I don't want to, like, it's not my intention to denigrate anyone's religion, belief, or faith practice, but rather it's my intent to familiarize myself and for us to sort of familiarize ourselves together with Scientology so that we can identify some of the ways that it can impact the Masterson trial. So some of that, so I don't know that we'll be talking much about Danny Masterson in this particular live stream. But but I don't know. He might come up a little bit, but that's basically like the underlying sort of trigger for me for why this was an interesting thing for me to get into. One of the difficulties of doing something like this and trying to, I always try to be fair to all sides, because I know that there's a certain reputation for Scientology, and and whether that's deserved or not, people will have their own opinions on that, right? I think most people that really dig into Scientology will say that it's a deserved reputation. But, I still want to treat this like I treat any other topic and try to be as fair as possible by going from, from all sides, and by seeking out information that is out there that could be beneficial, could be detrimental, and not necessarily just sort of cloud myself with, one particular direction automatically, if that makes sense. So Andy the Game Maker, for Scientology degradation, go watch South Park. Thanks for the super chat, man. Yes, anytime South Park is going to be covering a particular topic, or a group of people, you know that they are bound to be treating them in a very particular way. So, yeah. So I don't intend to give it specifically like the South Park treatment, but it could be that there's a that we end up coming to various conclusions based on kind of looking at this. I will also say that there are people who spend lifetimes basically studying Scientology, right? Because they have a massive, fascination with this organization and with this group of people. And so, one live stream can't possibly cover everything about it, right? So I want to get enough of a flavor of, what it is, what is it about, what's some of its history, and what are some ways that various entities kind of regard this organization. Now, when I do, um, the identify Scientology, right? I will people have sometimes said in the comments, like, don't call it the Church of Scientology because it's not really a church. The reason why I call it the Church of Scientology is not because I believe that it's a religion or anything. I really don't know one way or another. The reason why I call it that is because that is the legal designation that I've seen on all of the legal filings. And so for me, it's just simplest to just regard it that way. It's not by any means any kind of judgment, for or against them to say like, yes, they are a religion. I don't know. I've talked about this before. My personal religion is Catholicism. I grew up Catholic. I am Catholic. So I've never known anyone who is a Scientologist. At least not that I'm aware of. If I've known someone, I didn't know that they were a Scientologist. So I don't I don't want anyone to take that as me taking some sort of a stance on whether they should or shouldn't be a religion. We'll get into some different governments and things like that, the ways in which they have regarded Scientology. And so because I think that's kind of an interesting thing too, is to see, how some of these different entities have looked at this organization and made their own determinations. In the United States, for example, it is considered a religion, and it gets the tax designation that all other religions do. But other governments do not see it that way. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about that. And also, it's hard not to talk about Scientology without talking about someone like Leah Remini. I'm sure you guys are familiar. She's an actress. She is also a former Scientologist, and she is a very outspoken advocate against the Church of Scientology, because she talks about how she calls it a cult. She says very, very strongly it is a cult, and it is something that she basically has taken it on as her mission to say that this is a bad organization. People need to stay away from it. People need to get out of it. And so yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about some of her experiences and sort of what sort of changed things for her from being a Scientologist. Now, to sort of finish my thought on some of the difficulty of going through a topic like this, there is a bit of a vacuum of information from the standpoint of Scientology, right? Because they are notoriously a closed door organization. They don't like to talk about Scientology to non-Scientologists ever. And so there's a bit of mystery that surrounds this organization. So it's hard then to take an objective look at this organization and to say to have this kind of information, from one direction, and then look at all of the outspoken critics that a lot of them who typically are ex-Scientologists, and to say, to be able to feel like you're fairly balancing them out. So, that's just a matter of the playing field, right? That's just kind of a reality of this particular topic. But I wanted to make sure that that's noted, so that it's not like I'm ignoring certain things from the Church of Scientology. We'll look at their website. We'll look at some of the stuff that they've got on there and see what we can possibly glean from there. and then kind of go from there as well. But, on the note of people that have left the Church of Scientology, it is always a possibility that people who have left are particularly disillusioned. It could be that people have a a grudge or a vendetta, based on their experiences. And so they want to speak out, negatively about things. I have had Aaron Smith Levin, from the channel Growing Up in Scientology, who is an ex-Scientologist himself. I've had him on this channel. He's a lovely person. I would love to have him back at some point. And I think that he and I had a great discussion about Scientology from his experiences, and all of the things that he's sort of been talking about, with a lot of similar topics that I've been talking about. And well, he focuses overall on Scientology, but then also where there's a connection with Scientology and lawsuits, that's where his channel and mine kind of meet, right? So he, and it's not to say that someone like him is going to be speaking only out of some sort of a grudge or a vendetta, but I just wanted to note that there is always a possibility that others that are, when they leave an organization, there can be a certain sort of animus that comes with that. And I'm not saying that he does at all, not by any means. I really found him to be, again, a wonderful person that I would love to have on this channel again. And it could be also, it could very well be that all of these people that are ex-Scientologists that are coming out, that are speaking out against the organization, are 100% right in everything that they're saying, and that they are speaking out, and that this is a bad organization. That could be too. I'm just saying that this is a sort of difficulty in that an objective observer kind of has to sort of grapple with, in trying to come to some sort of a conclusion, or some sort of an idea about this whole topic, this whole subject. So, okay. So let's dive in. What exactly is Scientology, guys? I'm obviously not an expert in this. I'm sort of going through this as someone who's just exploring this, and you guys are going to explore it with me. If you guys have questions about stuff, you want me to explore some stuff, I'm happy to do that. I've got some things that I want to pull up to talk about, but if people have, some things that they want me to sort of take a look at, I'm willing to entertain some of these other things as well. So, okay, so let's start with what Scientology says about Scientology, right? So this is about what you can get from the Scientology website here. What is Scientology? Okay. It says, developed by L. Ron Hubbard, Scientology is a religion that offers a precise path leading to a complete and certain understanding of one's true spiritual nature and one's relationship to self, family, groups, mankind, all life forms, the material universe, the spiritual universe, and the supreme being. Scientology addresses the spirit, not the body or mind, and believes that man is far more than a product of his environment or his genes. Scientology comprises a body of knowledge which extends from certain fundamental truths. Prime among these are: man is an immortal spiritual being. His experience extends well beyond a single lifetime. His capabilities are unlimited, even if not presently realized. Scientology further holds man to be basically good, and that his spiritual salvation depends upon himself, his fellows, and his attainment of brotherhood with the universe. Scientology is not a dogmatic religion in which one is asked to accept anything on faith alone. On the contrary, one discovers for oneself that the principles of Scientology are true by applying its principles and observing or experiencing the results. The ultimate goal of Scientology is true spiritual enlightenment and freedom for all. So, okay, I'm not gonna lie. This is it sounds a little woo-woo, and I'm not entirely sure exactly what all of this means. It's not really clear. It's very kind of, we could say it feels like a very impressionistic view of what they believe. I mean, other than, I guess, these points that are italicized here, right? Man is an immortal spiritual being. His experience extends well beyond a single lifetime. So it sounds like there's some form of like reincarnation, I guess, that's involved here. His capabilities are unlimited, even if not presently realized. So there's a self-improvement aspect here that is involved. Um, so okay. And it's basically it offers a precise path leading to a complete and certain understanding of one's true spiritual nature. Um, so there are certain steps, I guess, that one has to take in order to achieve, I guess, for lack of a better word, enlightenment in Scientology. It's not a dogmatic religion in which one is asked to accept anything on faith alone. One discovers for oneself the principles of Scientology are true by applying its principles and observing or experiencing the results. And that's kind of interesting to me because I feel like this is something that in American culture, it it doesn't surprise me that a belief system like this cropped up first in the United States because we do have, like, I like to talk about this a lot, about American culture. The way that I view American culture, and I know we've got some international folks here. We went through in the chat where people are from. Um, so but my view of I took, as an undergraduate student before law school, I was a history major, sociology minor. The only reason why I didn't double major with sociology um is because I came by it too late. Basically, I wish I had come across Scientology sociology. I wish I had come across sociology sooner so that I could have double majored with that in history. But history was my first love. But anyway, I took enough classes to really kind of basically put together this idea that I have that the American ethos is basically there are two sides to the American ethos coin. You've got the frontiersman and then you've got the Puritan. And the Puritan is really the side that started first, and the frontiersman, kind of developed later. But we've got like you can often see sometimes that things will flip flop between what I like to call the frontiersman, the rough individual who's out there to make it and to get out there, and there's manifest destiny and and basically, like, be tough, uh you know be a rough individual and stand up for yourself, kind of thing. Then there's the Puritan side, which is all about um having a much more like ascetic kind of life where you are a diligent worker. You don't really engage in too much entertainment. You don't really Puritans, in early American history, believed that any sort of sign of somebody being lazy or enjoying life, enjoying music, these kinds of things, dancing, those were not things that were allowed in puritanical early American colonial society, because those were all seen as signs that they were part of that they were not part of the saved, right? That they had this very distinct belief that there were only a certain number of slots in heaven, and that there were signs that people could detect in their everyday life as to whether or not they were part of the saved that would actually end up making it. And so those who were basically perfect in their life were the ones that were like probably going to make it. Everybody else probably not. And so people became obsessed with these signs of are they working hard enough? Are they diligent enough? Are they serious enough? And so that's how in American culture, like we've got we have kind of like this obsession with like metrics and numbers and science and being able to break down everything to the nth degree, looking at how much money someone's making and determining like how hard of a worker they are. That is a virtue, that is a very American virtue. Not to say that doesn't exist in other countries and other cultures, but it's something that is pretty strong in the United States. And uh so I see this where it says, one discovers for oneself that the principles of Scientology are true by applying its principles and observing or experiencing the results. This is taking a science-y kind of way to faith, which is very interesting to me because, science is something that I think Americans tend to trust quite a bit because we believe quite a bit in the scientific method. This is why, something like why we have such rules about junk science getting into the court systems is because we know that something that sounds sciency but isn't really a rigorously tested method, that's not really very reliable, is something that can mislead a jury. And so this is why, we've got some rules about that, because we know that Americans are pretty, have some pretty strong feelings about things that are like sciency are more likely to be reliable. So like I said, it's interesting to me, that this kind of that this has this kind of vibe here, that that they are applying sort of scientific method in this sort of sense, sort of scientific principles, it says, um or sorry, applying the principles of Scientology to people's lives and then observing or experiencing the results. So yeah, it's interesting to me so far on that. Okay. Now, let me get some super chats. Andy, let's watch South Park. We're not going to watch South Park because I know I'm sure they usually have a very educational like aspect to their episodes, but we're not gonna get into that. Pull up the trailer for Battlefield Earth. I'm not I feel have have I watched you might know if I've seen Battlefield Earth. If maybe did we watch it when we were little? I don't know, Andy. But I've got to test before I pull that up to see even if it's relevant here. Um, okay, but that's a bit about Scientology. It's also related to. Oh, Andy says I have not. Okay. Okay. So Dianetics is very much related to Scientology here. And uh so let me just kind of read a little bit of what I've found on Dianetics. And don't hate me. This particular part is from Wikipedia. I know Wikipedia is not the best source, but it's a decent place to pull information from various sources. Um, okay, so basically, Dianetics is a set of pseudoscientific ideas and practices regarding the metaphysical relationship between the mind and body created by science fiction writer L. Ron Hubbard. Dianetics is practiced by followers of Scientology and the Nation of Islam, which I think it was either started or popularized by Louis Farrakhan back in the day. Dianetics was originally conceived as a branch of psychiatry, which Hubbard would later despise when various psychoanalysts refused his form of psychotherapy. Though it is presented as a form of psychological treatment, Dianetics and its core concepts, including auditing and engrams, have been rejected by psychologists and other scientists from the outset and are unsupported by credible evidence. Okay, all right, Andy, I'll do a poll. Okay. Okay, Andy, I'm doing a poll because you are insistent. um okay. So you guys have a poll here. Should we watch the trailer for Battlefield Earth? Because Andy says it's about Scientology. So if it is, I think we might do so. Um so okay. So Dianetics is okay. Dianetics divides the mind into three parts: the conscious analytical mind, the subconscious reactive mind, and the somatic mind. The goal of Dianetics is to erase the content of the reactive mind, which practitioners believe interferes with a person's ethics, awareness, happiness, and sanity. The Dianetics procedure to achieve this erasure is called auditing. In auditing, the Dianetic auditor asks a series of questions or commands which are intended to help a person locate and deal with painful past experiences. So it sounds like there's this connection with psychology, um, that Scientology has this connection with Scientology through Dianetics, through its practice of Dianetics. Um, so, okay. All right. Uh, Now, one of the things about this that I came across that is interesting is I'll share my screen here. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay. So this is from the National Library of Medicine, um, which is it's an American government website. Um, And this is an article about how there was a war over mental health between Scientology and psychiatry. And I'm just going to read through the introduction here because it's a long article. And I will, you know what? I'm going to link to it in the chat, and then I'll put it um and then I'll put it in the description as well later for folks that are in the uh watching on replay. So basically, I'm just going to go through the article, but if anybody wants to read it on their own in full, you can definitely do so later. Um, okay, so we'll start with the abstract. Over 60 years ago, founder L. Ron Hubbard began what has become Scientology's greatest battle. Scientology emerged from Dianetics, which Hubbard hoped would replace the psychiatric profession. In this article, we discuss how Scientology attempted to position itself as a rival profession to psychiatry and the consequences of those attempts. Scientology's battle with psychiatry gained some success. Oh, that's a good idea. I will pin that. Okay. Okay, so yeah, the article here is pinned now. Thanks, Secret Mood Squirrel. Good idea. Scientology's battle with psychiatry gained some success from the social conditions during which it emerged, but it continues in a time that has seen increasing success with various psychiatric treatments. As such, Scientology's direct influence on the psychiatric profession may be difficult to measure, but its actions have coincided with substantial challenges to psychiatry. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Okay. And then I'll close the poll when I finish with this article. Okay. For decades, Scientology has waged a worldwide war against psychiatry. This war began with Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard and continues under his successor David Miscavige. It aims to eradicate psychiatric practice, especially psychiatrists' use of pharmaceuticals, from the planet and replace it with Scientology's own techniques. Scientology began as Dianetics, which was a supposed alternative to other 1950s mental health therapies. Scientology's membership, which in the United States was approximately 25,000 in 2008, and included notable celebrities, promotes its various goals consisting of religious doctrines, political aspirations, business operations, cultural productions, pseudo-medical practice, pseudo-psychiatric practice, social services, and alternative family structures. And now, wait a minute. Let me just backtrack here. When is this from? This is from 2012. So it's not exactly, this is a decade old now, but pieces of this might still be accurate, might still be ongoing today. In this article, we focus on Scientology as a pseudo-psychiatric profession by demonstrating how Scientology was competing for psychiatry's professional jurisdiction. In examining this competition, we follow the seminal work of Andrew Abbott, who argued that when a profession has control over a jurisdiction, no intellectual space or vacancy exists in which another profession can enter. Nonetheless, competitors can create vacancies by brute force or dislodge, bump a profession by direct attack. Bump chains can begin uh, Bump chains can begin with groups entering the system for the first time or with old groups seeking new turf. We examine Scientology's attempt to bump psychiatry from its jurisdiction in order to replace it with Hubbard's theories and techniques about mental illness and therapy. Scientology's failed attempt resulted in over 60 years of anti-psychiatric attacks. We first overview Scientology and psychiatry within Abbott's discussion of professions and explain how Scientology utilized pseudoscience to seek public support. Second, we demonstrate that psychiatry was vulnerable to attack at the time that Scientology emerged in the early 1950s because of societal events and internal issues such as psychiatry's treatment practices. I was going to say, I mean, in the 1950s, psychiatry was not what it is today. I mean, there were some arguably brutal methods that would be used, like shock therapy and things like that, still in the 1950s, for people that were going through mental health issues. Arguably, it was pretty vulnerable for some kind of organization to come in, or some kind of a movement to come in and just to try to provide an alternative. Um, Third, we argue that Hubbard exploited psychiatry's weakness when he attempted to delegitimize it and professionalize his organization. Fourth, we use reviews of Hubbard's foundational Dianetics book to demonstrate how psychiatry and medicine delegitimized Dianetics and Scientology. Finally, we conclude by discussing how Scientology attempts to undermine psychiatry by its oppositional campaign while remaining unable to provide a workable, effective alternative to psychiatric pharmaceutical practice. Interesting. So this is a very, very interesting article here that can really give some good, and I mean, but if I were to read through all of this, it would probably not be the liveliest of live streams, admittedly. So let me see if I can find where they talk about Dianetics here. Or maybe I'll just get to the TLDR and read the conclusion. Okay. Yeah, let's do this. Okay. We'll get to the spoiler here. All right. Based on Abbott's classic discussion of the system of professions, a portrayal of Dianetics and Scientology's war against psychiatry as a professionalism battle between an ideology and a science would misrepresent the nature of psychiatry in the early 1950s. Psychiatry's professional reputation was weak because none of its techniques, except perhaps the mysterious electroshock, could control, much less cure, major diseases. Its major therapeutic tool throughout the 1950s and in some circles into the 1990s was psychoanalysis, which eventually most members of the discipline abandoned because it was unscientific. When psychiatrists used it, it was expensive and slow, and at best cured some neuroses only. Medical doctors dominated its application. Dianetics, perhaps even more than its immediate successor, Scientology, claimed to be fast, cheap, and remarkably successful regarding a wide range of afflictions, with laypersons learning its basic techniques quickly. While a few doctors did not reject it, many did, and some of them saw Dianetics as a potential threat to psychiatry. Indeed, Hubbard constructed Dianetics as a threat when he attempted to elevate its professional image by claiming academic degrees that he did not have and establishing Scientology journals along the lines of scientific disciplines. Oy, I mean, if he was claiming that he had academic degrees that he didn't have, that sounds pretty fraudulent. Within 2 years of Dianetics' appearance, however, a scientific revolution began in psychiatry to which Hubbard could offer no equal. Pharmaceuticals appeared that had dramatic effects on controlling some major mental illnesses, and psychiatry's professional image improved. As a narcissistic ideologue committed only to his own viewpoints, Hubbard rejected any value of pharmaceuticals and eventually launched a war against them and the psychiatrists who prescribed them. This war had effects, both positive and negative. For instance, on the positive side, Scientology was somewhat correct about the dangers of Prozac, at least on some people, and it helped to expose psychiatric treatment abuse in Australia. On the negative side, some people who could have benefited from Prozac probably avoided it because of Scientology's ideologically driven attacks against it. Other major events in psychiatry began in 1980 when the discipline's major classification guide to mental disorders began focusing on identifiable characteristics rather than etiologies. Etiologies. That's interesting. I've never come across that word. Classification became more scientific, so the application of psychotropics gained precision. Hubbard, however, rejected the very foundations of this new system and instead constructed an imprecise one around his notion of psychosis. Regarding the effectiveness of treatments, which is a major factor contributing to a group's professional image, psychiatry's combination of drugs and some therapies achieved moderate to considerable successes in many areas of mental health, while Hubbard's techniques purportedly to cure psychoses appear to be disastrous. While Scientology continues to criticize aspects of psychiatry, its shortfalls suggest that it will never replace the profession with its own mental health techniques. Scientology will never replace psychiatry, but its failure will not be for lack of trying. Immediately after the September 11th, 2001 attacks against the World Trade Center in New York, Scientology set up nationally available telephone hotlines under the guise of National Mental Health Assistance, which many people probably confused with the respected National Mental Health Association. It directed crying and upset people to Scientology centers for assistance. Oh, God. At the disaster site itself, Scientologists wearing yellow t-shirts identifying themselves as volunteer ministers pitched in during the cleanup effort, but had their own agenda for doing so. As revealed in emails that Scientologist Simon Hare sent to Scientologists at the time, and which critics of the organization obtained, one of their goals there was, and here's a quotation, "We are trying to move in and knock the psychs out of counseling to the grieving families. Due to some brilliant maneuvering by some simply genius Sea Org members, we tied up the majority of the psychs who were attempting to get to families yesterday in Q&A. Bull bait, which is techniques of confrontational insults on which Scientologists train, and wrangling. They have a hard time completing cycles of action and are pretty easy to disperse. But today they are out in full force and circling like vultures over these people, and all of our resources are tied up in the support efforts in the disaster zone at present." Good Lord. Explaining further what role traditional mental health and psychiatric professionals were playing, Hare continued, "The other religions here with their ministers have shown their true colors and are working hand in hand with the psychs to give these people as much false data and re-stimulation as they can. They have no tech, and they're not even trying to hide it anymore. They've crossed over and abandoned anything spiritual and to hell with them." So the thing that really concerns me about this is that there are people that have legitimate issues, right? These are grieving families. These are people that are, around the rubble on 9/11. And uh, it feels like they are trying to sort of slide in and pretend to be the resources that people are trying to actually find in order to, get help with dealing with the crisis that was going on, which was absolutely 100% a crisis. Um, so I don't want to be judging any belief systems or anything like that, but um, this level of trying to undermine the support systems that are in place, which are, very much accepted by the other faith groups, by the other religions here that we're trying to help in this. The tone of this email suggests to me that there is an underlying motive that is not necessarily to actually help people. And I'm a little bit horrified by this. I'm not going to lie. Whatever other goals the volunteer ministers had, a primary one was to get Scientology's techniques to distressed workers and families in place of traditional mental health and psychiatric counseling. In the language of professional competition, the volunteer ministers wanted to bump the psychiatrists and related professionals from the scene. Yeah, and that's not the time to be doing that either. I don't like it. Don't like it at all. Moving ahead some 11 years later, Scientology announced the opening of a national office in Washington, D.C., ostensibly to coordinate its many social and humanitarian initiatives on a national and international level, but also presumably to lobby government officials on issues related to Scientology's interests. Two of the dignitaries who spoke complimented Scientology on previous lobbying efforts. One of the programs that it hoped to strengthen was the Scientology Volunteer Ministers, the world's largest independent relief force providing emergency response at major disaster sites for more than a decade. Unstated, of course, is the goal of the volunteer ministers to eliminate the role of psychiatry and mental health professionals at those sites. Consequently, the United States now has a federally tax-exempt organization, inclusively called the Church of Scientology, using taxpayers' money in the nation's capital to lobby officials and agencies about the destruction of psychiatric practices. Yikes. Okay. In addition to these efforts, Scientology continues to solicit public support through its websites and on and offline events, including CCHR's Psychiatry and Industry of Death exhibition. Moreover, some critics of Scientology highlight what appear to be harmful practices at Narconon centers, which use a Scientology-affiliated drug rehabilitative program that avoids psychiatric or traditional mental health assistance. Scientology's war against psychiatry is far from it. Is far from over. And in fact, it just may have entered a new phase. Wow, that is fascinating. So yeah, if you guys want to see the meat and potatoes of this, we really just did the introduction and the conclusion of this. This is very, very interesting. To see this from the National Library of Medicine, this article right here, in this about that. I think that that's very alarming that they basically seemed like they were taking advantage of a big national crisis, and to basically sort of get in there and uh sort of try to redirect people that were trying to find resources that they needed in order to get help dealing with what they are dealing with what they were dealing with at the time. It's if somebody wants to be, trying to essentially disrupt the psychiatric, like, I don't know, industry, right? Traditional psychiatry, if they want to be disrupting it, that is not the time to be doing that, in my opinion. I'm very, very suspicious of those kinds of tactics, on that, I will say. So we're going to talk a little bit also about L. Ron Hubbard just a bit, since he's like the charismatic leader of Scientology, or at least he was the founder of it. But before we do that, I wanted to welcome Stuck on Streams to Bike Club. Welcome to Bike Club. I hope you enjoy being here. I hope you can join us on Friday for our members only live stream. It should be very fun. But otherwise, I really appreciate you becoming a YouTube member. Definitely helps to support this channel so that I can cover all kinds of interesting topics, and dedicate some resources to this. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it. Okay. Let's do. Okay, so now, like I did before about Scientology, I'm going to first take a look at what the Scientology, what their website says about L. Ron Hubbard. I fully anticipate that this is going to be, and I'm just going to read this. I'm not going to read all of these other like different articles about him that they have about him, but I fully anticipate this being something that is written in the best possible light, right? See here. I'm looking at the chat. Oh, okay. So what I probably mispronounced Narc-Anon. So like Narcotics Anonymous. Okay. Sorry, guys. I totally mispronounced that, I think. Okay. All right. Now let's see what they have to say about L. Ron Hubbard. Okay. He's the founder of Dianetics and Scientology. For nearly a quarter of a century, I have been engaged in the investigation of the fundamentals of life, the material universe, and human behavior. Such an adventure leads one down many highways, through many byroads, into many back alleys of uncertainty, through many strata of life. Okay. Such an adventure is also what ultimately led L. Ron Hubbard to the founding of Dianetics and Scientology, and thus a route to previously unimagined spiritual heights. Among other landmark events of the journey, in July of 1952, L. Ron Hubbard became the first to scientifically isolate, measure, and describe the human spirit, while objectively demonstrating spiritual potentials well in advance of scientific thought. Moreover, these potentials were found to be possessed by every human being and just as universally attainable. Thus developed his description of Scientology as accomplishing the goal of every great religion, freeing the soul by wisdom. All told, L. Ron Hubbard's works on Dianetics and Scientology comprise the largest cohesive statement on the human mind and spirit, more than 5,000 writings, and 3,000 recorded lectures. Contained therein are answers to life's most profound mysteries, the enigma of existence, the riddle of death, the realization of states not even described in earlier literature. Also, from these works come Scientology technologies to rear children, repair families, educate, organize, and provide relief in times of illness or suffering. So that all may avail themselves of these technologies, L. Ron Hubbard directed the rise of Scientology churches all over the world and thus the birth of a worldwide religion. It is a practical religion. It is applicable to every aspect of human existence, and it is religion for the here and now. But at its core and within every church of Scientology lies this enduring invitation from its founder. We are extending to you the precious gift of freedom and immortality, factually, honestly. I don't really understand what any of that means. I read it. I read through it before, and I've got to say, it just kind of feels like it's just a bunch of fluff here. And that's fine. They can characterize him however they want, but I don't find it to be particularly instructive. um as to like to tell me like who he was as a person, right? Or what basis he founded the Church of Scientology, other than that it's to provide answers to life's most profound mysteries, right? Every faith system, belief system, every faith, every religion, has some sort of answer to life's mysteries, right? Like, why do we have suffering? Why do we, what happens when we die? What happens, how do we carry on in this existence that we have in this world that is not always, peaches and cream, right? It's often a very difficult existence. How do we manage through this kind of an existence? And so it's a very, like I said before, about like the way that Scientology, that the website defined Scientology was very impressionistic, but like there's nothing here that really kind of draws me in to like really want to learn more. I mean, but if I were someone who was I guess, didn't have a belief system already, I guess, and I was going through a period of suffering and needed to have some kind of some kind of meaning that I was searching for. I could see, I guess, how this could be enough to maybe say like, oh, maybe I can find some answers through this organization, I suppose. Um, Now going into his background, uh, his background is a little interesting here. Because he was notably, like, the first thing that people will say about L. Ron Hubbard is that he was a prolific science fiction writer. He let's see. How many books or stories did he write? I mean, he wrote a lot. Um, let's see here. I'm trying to find this. Okay. Well, maybe I won't get into too many details, but like, I mean, he wrote things like, I'll pull this up. Oops, press the wrong button. So things like this: Two Complete Science Adventure, science adventure books. He's got Pebble in the Sky by Isaac Asimov, and then The Kingslayer by L. Ron Hubbard. So he wrote a lot of stuff like this that was considered, I guess, pulp science fiction, I guess. But uh, so okay, where is? Let me X out of that. And so he wrote a lot, and so you can see some of that influence in, I suppose, some of the when we start getting into like the deeper things that Scientology believes, and we'll get into it. I'm going to share some videos too to kind of get into some of this stuff. He also was married twice. He was previously married and then ended up leaving that family, joining like a sex cult kind of thing, sort of thing. In Pasadena, he was getting into the occult, and that often involves some sexy time stuff. That's kind of weird. But that was after his time in the military. So he was in the Navy, but he didn't exactly have like the best Navy career. Like he was what was the phrase for it that they used? He I think this happened multiple times where he was relieved of command because they were like, you can't be trusted based on your judgment and leadership. Yeah, they said that so Hubbard was unsuitable for independent duties and lacking in the essential qualities of judgment, leadership, and cooperation. This involved he ended up like firing on an island off the coast of Mexico, which is, an American ally. Like well, not to say that we've never been at war with Mexico. There has been the Mexican-American War, but that was a long, long, long time ago. But during let's see, when was this? It was World War II. Yeah, he was commissioned as a lieutenant in the U.S. Navy during World War II, and he like went on some wild goose chase to hunt after some kind of a submarine that there ended up being no evidence that even existed. And so all kinds of things happened that seemed to suggest that he sort of had, I don't know, I guess you could look at it as like delusions of adventure, I guess, that he wanted to have in his military career, that he wasn't given those opportunities. So he was almost like writing them in his own life. So anyway, so he ended up being like relieved of it, but there's also like uh discrepancies between what Scientology says about him and then what the Navy has said about him, about various like medical issues that he may or may not have had while he was in the Navy. He there's so let me read this. Okay, after being relieved of command of PC 815, that's a ship that he had, Hubbard began reporting sick, citing a variety of ailments, including ulcers, malaria, and back pains. Hubbard was admitted to the San Diego Naval Hospital for observation. He would remain there for nearly 3 months. Years later, Hubbard would privately write to himself, "Your stomach trouble you used as an excuse to keep the Navy from punishing you. You are free of the Navy." So this is sorry guys, it's from Wikipedia, but the one reason why I feel relatively comfortable with using this as a source is because they do cite to various sources. In 1944, Hubbard was posted to Portland, where USS Algol was under construction. The ship was commissioned in July, and Hubbard served as the navigation and training officer. Hubbard requested and was granted a transfer to the School of Military Government in Princeton. The night before his departure, the ship's log reports that the navigating officer, Hubbard, reported to the officer on duty that an attempt at sabotage had been made sometime between 1530 and 1600. A Coke bottle filled with gasoline with a cloth wick inserted had been concealed among cargo, which was to be hoisted aboard and stored in number 1 hold. It was discovered before being taken on board. ONI, FBI, and NSD authorities reported on the scene. Investigations were started. Hubbard attended school in Princeton until January 1945, when he was assigned to Monterey, California. In April, he again reported sick and was readmitted to Oak Knoll Naval Hospital, Oakland. His complaints included headaches, rheumatism, conjunctivitis, pains in his side, stomach aches, pains in his shoulder, arthritis, hemorrhoids. That's a lot of like different random things to have going on. And maybe those did happen, maybe they didn't. He was discharged from the hospital on December 4th, 1945, and transferred to inactive duty on February 17th, 1946. Hubbard would ultimately resign his commission after the publication of Dianetics, with effect from October 30th, 1950. Okay, like interesting. Oh, hello. Hi. Hi, do you have something to say? I know. You want food. You want food. I know. This is usually time for me to give you food. I'll give you some soon. And also I forgot to close the poll. And yeah, it looks like we are probably going to be watching Battlefield Earth. And so I'm gonna have to look that up. And yeah, so this is interesting. Oh, and here's an interesting super chat. Percy Pendrake. As someone who grew up in Scientology, it is the religion of cognitive dissonance. The things they say and do are polar opposites. They gaslight and isolate people with their own vocabulary. Fascinating. I appreciate you super chatting and speaking up about that. Because it sounds like you're saying that you grew up in Scientology. And that seems to be what I have seen from other people that are talking about Scientology as well. Very, very fascinating. Thank you for that. Also, Sarah Gardner, welcome to Bite Club. Happy to have you here, and I hope you can join us on Friday for our members only live stream. So, yeah, welcome, and thanks for supporting the channel. Okay. Now, I wanted to, let's see here. Okay, let's see here. All right, let's get into, I wanted to share a little bit of this one video that I found. And so folks that are Bite Club members that joined us on Sunday, they got a little bit of a preview on this, right? Because we sort of went through a lot of these topics, not necessarily the articles and stuff that we've gone through so far, but this is one that they definitely did see. So let me share this here to kind of get into this a little bit too, because this is a pretty good, I suppose, summary of Scientology and then of the beliefs, so that you guys can sort of see it. It's already basically been thankfully compiled a bit, and so also to Percy Pendrake, who super chatted, who used to be in a member of Scientology. You can let me know if these things are accurate or inaccurate, from your experience. That would be cool. And Andy, I see you in the chat about Battlefield Earth. I will be picking that up as well.
At this point, he pivoted to Scientology, and he made the argument that this whole process is a religion, not a science. With this came his idea to monetize, charging at the time $500 for an entire.
And just for a little bit of context, so the section just before this in the video is talking about Dianetics, and how he kind of came up with Dianetics. So now it's basically getting into how he sort of turned that into something bigger to talk about, to start this organization, this religion called Scientology, what he calls a religion, Scientology.
24 hours of auditing. This created a wave of churches being formed across the world, including the central headquarters that was then in Washington, D.C., and it still stands as a museum. The headquarters now exists in California, in Riverside County. About 1,000 people live on the property, and it's well protected, including high fences and constant security.
And also a question, Percy Pendrake, you don't have to answer one way or another. But I am curious if you lived on this compound or one like it, because that's very interesting to me, to see if these things are true, what are being said here. Okay, anyway, but I also fully understand if you don't want to reveal that kind of information.
There is a public road that drives through it, though it's constantly recorded and monitored. The church requested that the road either be closed to the public or even moved to go around the property, but both requests were denied. There are many rumors about living at this space that are hotly debated, including subpar working wages, pursuit teams that bring people back and don't allow them to leave, and required confessions if they hear of other people in the compound talking or gossiping about the church or its members. I say this is debated because no one inside the base will complain or make a statement to the police about their experience there. Only a few have made complaints after they've left the church, and those cases have all been tossed out or not taken seriously due to lack of information or evidence. Let's back up and focus on what Scientologists believe. As a religion, what are their beliefs? They believe that their soul, the Thetan,
So Percy Pendrick says there are two different Scientologists, public ones and those who are in the Sea Org. I was a public Scientologist. Okay, interesting. So does that mean that you were a public facing person, as in someone who was sort of out in the public, as opposed to Sea Org people are much more private? That's what that sounds like. I thanks so much for responding. That's very, very interesting. Okay.
is immortal, and our lives are not confined to the single lifetime. They also believe we are capable of anything, even if we haven't been able to realize it yet. They do believe in a godlike figure called the Supreme Being, but its members learn about that and discover it on their own unique journeys. There are 8.
And that sounds consistent with what the Scientology website was saying, which is like there's no dogma, but people sort of like discover it on their own and they like live it out by practicing and sort of testing it out on their own lives, essentially.
Dynamics that drive us forward, including the urge towards infinity, which includes discovering God. Other dynamics include the urge to protect animal life, the urge to exist as a peaceful community, and the urge to exist as one mankind across all races. When speaking about Scientology, words like faith and belief are often avoided in lieu of concrete terms based on science and technology. Once you are clear, meaning you've been cleansed of traumatic memories and feelings, you are able to climb the ladder to more meaningful and powerful positions. After clear comes a state called operating Thetan, or OT for short. This allows you to control the world around you, including life, energy, and matter. They can also
I'm not going to lie. That's it. Oh, hey, Indy has opinions on this. I was going to say that the idea that somebody is able to control life, matter, all of these things around them, does sound a little woo woo to me. But then again, there are aspects of Catholicism that some people will find very woo woo as well. So, hey, different strokes, right?
leave their bodies, as the Thetan itself is not confined to it. There are many levels of operating Thetan, and it costs money through the auditing process to progress.
And that's something that is very, very suspicious to me. If this is a religion or a belief system that requires a certain specific set of steps for someone to go through in order to achieve enlightenment, and they are also requiring payment for each of those steps, that's something that can keep someone in a perpetual cycle of poverty. Because if they are, I mean, depending on how much that costs, depending on that in comparison to their income, um, you know, that to me is a little bit suspicious. So that's something that can definitely be used to control someone, for sure, to control a whole mass of people.
The cheapest level is $2,750 about, and that's assuming you're free of those memories and feelings. Otherwise, you'll have much more auditing to do before this. The third level of OT involves a major discovery that Hubbard discovered after Scientology had been founded. While people reaching this level have signed confidentiality agreements, some of these documents have been released to the public, and it tells a story that again causes a pretty major controversy. Okay, bear with me. 75 million years ago, an ancient being called Xenu was a dictator of something called the Galactic Confederacy. He brought humans to Earth, dropped them into volcanoes, and killed them, releasing their Thetans into the environment.
Now, this is obviously taking a clip
These
from South
Thetans
Park.
are angry and upset, causing us now to be infected and affected by these negative emotions. To overcome these negative emotions from this traumatic event is how you can reach OT level 3, but it's dangerous. L. Ron Hubbard claims that it's a tough thing to do, and many illnesses might plague people attempting to conquer it. The church itself doesn't enjoy the telling of this story, and will go out of its way to block its telling. So if this video disappears, or if I go missing, that may be the reason why.
Whoops. Same for me. Well, we'll see how things continue.
This story was the focus of an episode of South Park centering on Scientology.
What is the most secret part of Scientology or thing that they worry about leaking? Well, you know that stuff about the aliens and the volcanoes.
I don't know what that. No, what is that?
Oh, gosh,
It's like
I
the
hope
whole basis of
Yeah.
Scientology.
Yeah, well, you don't know about that when you're in Scientology until you reach a certain level. Like, you have to receive a certain amount of training and counseling, and it can take years. And, you know, the public Scientologist has to pay a lot of money before they get there.
The total to get to this point through the process of auditing is around $100,000. If you don't become enlightened and don't solve these life
It's a lot of
mysteries, you
money.
must pay to try the process again.
Yikes.
By the way, most Scientologists don't even get to this.
Most
don't.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, because you have to be
And this clip right here is as I'll be playing more of this conversation here.
wealthy to get to this.
Not only do you have to be wealthy, but a lot of times what they do, the new scam is you got to go, you get to a level and then they go, oh, we messed that up. You have to go back down at your expense.
Yikes. And now I want to pull up this super chat from Interlocution. Thanks so much for the super chat. It says, I have a family member in the Sea Org in LA and their pay is about $50 a week. So that's exactly what I'm talking about here. This is, you know, there is a possibility of somebody really being held in poverty by an organization like this. If they basically play themselves as like the only alternative for somebody to find meaning, to find enlightenment, to find, you know, their life's purpose is to go through this process. And oh, by the way, it costs this much money. And oh, by the way, you're only going to be, this is your one job and you're only going to be paid this much, you know, per week. That's very alarming. That's very alarming. So we've got some potential issues with coercive control within this organization already that I can see, you know, and again, I don't want to be denigrating religious beliefs or faith beliefs or things like that, but you can also have an organization that is comporting itself in a particular way that is wrong, that doesn't necessarily impact, you know, the beliefs that are supposed to be supported by that organization, right? Like every saying this as a Catholic Church isn't, you know, pure of problems, right? That's been in headlines for years and decades at this point. So I want to stress here that it is possible also that you can have an organization that is created to support a particular belief system that where the organization itself is incredibly corrupt and is taking advantage of people in horrible ways. That doesn't necessarily that critique doesn't necessarily criticize the actual beliefs that those people have that are within that organization. I hope that makes sense. Okay. And Percy Pendrake says, exactly, Leah Remini is a hero. Also, most people in the Sea Org sign billion-year contracts, and if they want out, they have to literally escape with nothing but the clothes on their back. That sounds like the kind of thing that I would be very much concerned with here, with already seeing these pieces getting put together here. Okay.
Well, the church doesn't come out and discuss.
Okay, so then this next section is talking about Scientology and taxes. So we won't get into this part right here, but what I want to do instead is to talk about to show this clip here. Whoops. It's not what I wanted to do here. Okay. Well, we'll see. Okay. So I'm going to be sharing a little bit from Leah Remini's conversation with Joe Rogan about Scientology and about when she learned about Xenu and all that kind of stuff and the impact that it had on her. But first, let me get this super chat. Catherine S. His former staff raised in Scientology can quickly cost as much, or Scientology can quickly cost as much as all your money plus available credit. If you have the money, wow, let's do your next service. So yeah, I appreciate your insight on this as well. And that definitely, I mean, it once again supports what I was already sort of seeing here with these pieces of taking advantage of people financially and kind of holding them in a certain place. And I understand too, like, you know, what we were reading from that prior article from the National Library of Medicine, you know, they were saying that back in 2008, there were 25,000 Scientologists worldwide. When I talked to Aaron Smith-Levin, I mean, he said that he estimated, I think, around 30,000. So that basically checks out. Those numbers check out. That's a very small number of people, right? That ascribe to this particular religion or faith group or what have you, however you want to describe it. And oftentimes when you have a very small religious group, very small faith group, I can see how people can become very quickly sort of protectionist in a way, like, to put it one way, to basically say to engage in certain tactics that are going to be trying to prevent people from leaving that organization, prevent people from leaving that church, if you want to call it a church. I can see how those sort of tactics arise because, there's a fear. It's like fear-based, that somebody is, when somebody is leaving, to want to very much, want to really prevent these people from leaving. Now that's not to say that I in any way condone any of those tactics, because we're talking about trying to ruin people's lives just to live the life that they want to live. And people should absolutely have their own, freedom to associate and whatnot, and not be held captive by an organization that is going to be using all kinds of crazy methods, right? Just to try to coerce people and control people and to hold them against their will with these various methods. Yeah. So, anyway, all of that is to say, Catherine, thank you so much for letting us, or for giving us that bit of insight as well. Hi, puppy. Hi. You want to talk? You want to say something? She wants food is what she wants. That's Indy Bear. Hey, Indy. Hi, sweetie. Okay, let's get to what Leah Remini has to say about this bit of finding out about Xenu, right? Okay.
These are called Sea Org members. I'm not talking about average Scientologists.
And explain to me the Sea Org, because was that established when L. Ron Hubbard was evading taxes? So
yes,
he got
and
on
he
a
was
boat?
on a ship. Yes, and he created this ship called the Free Winds, and whatever ship that's not called the Free Winds. It is called the Free Winds now, but that's where they deliver the highest level of Scientology. They're OT8.
So when you get to OT8, you got to get
go
on
to
a
the Free
boat.
Winds. But before that, I don't know the name of his boats, but I think it was called the Apollo.
That was a part of Going Clear that was hilarious when who was it? One of the writers or one of the
Paul Haggis.
Yes,
Yeah.
when he received like the highest level shit.
That wasn't even the highest level,
Wasn't
Joe.
even?
That was OT3.
Really?
Yeah, and when I read it, I literally, you have to go into a secure room.
Explain, talk us through that.
Okay,
What is
so
that
first
like?
of all, you have to get invited. You have to get an invitation.
So you'd been Scientology for years. You'd spent a ton of money already.
Ton of money.
And you're like,
and
God
by the
damn
way,
it,
most
this is it.
By the way, most Scientologists don't even get to this.
Most
don't.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because you have to be wealthy to get to this.
Not only do you have to be wealthy, but a lot of times what they do, the new scam is you got to go, you get to a level and then they go, oh, we messed that up. You have to go back down at your expense.
Right.
You have to redo that part.
You were talking about that on your show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And they rewrite some new thing.
Yeah.
And...
Now David Miscavige rewrites things and says he found it in a vault somewhere. And like we all believe it, baby. Honestly, we all believe it because we want to believe it.
So talk me through.
So you go through this rigorous.
What level did you get?
And this is very fascinating to me too, that this seems to be a core central belief of Scientology, and yet most people don't know about it until, and this is Andy. This is why this is why I like to have my Bluetooth earbuds, but unfortunately they are not charged. So I'm worried that you're gonna chew on this cord right here and we're gonna get disconnected. What are you doing here, bub? Sorry. My back to the topic. What I was going to say is that it's also very fascinating to me, and to me also very suspicious at the same time, that people don't learn about the core belief of the religion that they're getting into until they are at a certain level they've been really going through so much of this process of belief before you know what you're going to be believing in. Um, and especially because there's a financial component that's attached to that. I get this sense that someone doesn't get presented with the fact of what is involved in ultimately believing in the what this religion is all about until they are, in a sense, in too deep, right? They've invested so much of their time, their money, their emotion. Like, that's, I mean, emotional investment is very powerful too. Like, don't don't take that lightly either. I mean, people can be manipulated very strongly through their emotions. And so if you don't even know what the core belief of the religion is that you are getting into until you have already invested so much of this and so much of your social connection at that point too, that is very, very, I think, suspicious to me, right? Because like you look at other religions, and somebody who wants to become Catholic, become Jewish, become Muslim, become, Buddhist, you are able to learn what those core beliefs are before you get into it, right? And some are more dogmatic than others, right? Like Buddhism is much less dogmatic, Catholicism is much more so. And so, but because before you become a member, you're able to independently, discover and investigate what it is that these organizations are teaching, what these religions or faith groups are teaching for what they believe is their core doctrine. And I also know that Aaron mentioned when he and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, that he also mentioned that most of the people that are in Scientology also grew up in Scientology. And so that's another aspect of potentially of control. If that's kind of like the family that you've always known, that's another layer of potential of control, which is a whole other element to it. Also, Catherine asks, I wanted to pull this up because I think this is interesting. When people are really in, most of the people friends, romantic partners, etc., are all Scientologists. If you believe publicly, you will lose all of those people. The emotional loss is big. Exactly, because I mean, humans have a very strong need for social connection. We all need, for lack of a better word, a tribe of people that we can connect with. And so when somebody has grown up in that kind of an environment, that's something that even outside of the financial component, it's a very, very powerful force to keep people where they are. And somebody who is going to be somebody who is there partly because they are so rooted in that society just based on their growing up in it, that is also a recipe for abuse, right? Somebody who has grown up in this sort of situation, if they don't have the proper, let's say, due process methods, they don't have, the like ways to sort of create some sort of independence for themselves. If they are abused and they are abused by someone with higher power within the organization, that's a recipe for disaster. It really is. Yeah. And Percy Pendrick says that's why people stay in Scientology. If you leave, everyone shuns you. And that's a very strong method of control, I would say. So let's get back to Leah Remini talking about this.
Get to
OT 5.
Ooh, you got close.
Yeah, I got close. I got to to get to this advanced level, it's called advanced levels.
Okay?
Right. You are put through the ringer. They go through every folder. From the moment you walk into a Church of Scientology, they have folders on you. So everything you've ever said is written down and videotaped. Okay. So they get your folders and they cull it. They go through it. Okay. And they go through every transgression. Are you still humping your pillow? Are you still, you know, a nasty asshole to your mother? Like they go
Right.
through everything. Are you still connected to this person who said something bad about Scientology 20 years ago? So they make sure that you're eligible to get the advanced.
And that's another aspect of control too, is that if people have documentation about every single transgression that you've ever done, that is also a method of control, right? Somebody has dirt on you, they can control you to a certain extent. They have information that you would rather other people not know, or you would rather other people, you know, not spread because it's embarrassing, because it's shameful, because it's, you know, one thing or another. That also is another method potentially for control where somebody can be abused. 100%.
Data.
And where do they bring you?
Okay, they
to
bring
give
you to a
some,
room.
Where is it at?
It's on L. Ron Hubbard Way in Los Angeles and Fountain. It's
So
called
how
AO.
nervous are you? Are you freaking out? Oh my God,
I'm
I can't believe this
excited
is
because
happening.
finally all this shit I've put up with all my life is finally going to be answered. All my questions of life are going to be answered in this moment.
And you realize this is the moment you're going to get the sacred documents.
So my mother, yeah. So because I'm a celebrity, they let my mother come in, and she was also higher level than me, right? So imagine I'm in this like double, like, so you go through one door and then security, and then you got to get the lanyard, you got to get like clearance, you got to go take a picture. You've got to sign documents and say, if I ever reveal this, it's going to be $100,000. You know, you don't ever get to read any legal document that Scientology gives you. So you just sign things, you know, you just, they say, sign here. It's like today, what you did here.
That's another potential warning sign for, you know, coercive control of individuals.
So I don't know. I could be married to you, as for all I know, when I signed today. I like how you shook your head no. You don't need to try. Okay, so you know comedy. You don't deny, Joe. So I don't know why you keep denying.
That's how you step up comedy another notch.
Got it. You deny.
You just go no.
Oh, I didn't get the memo. Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's what we're doing now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. So the okay. So you go into the room, a secure room.
You got a lanyard. They take your photo. You sign the documents.
Well, they give you a folder. You have to get a briefcase that only you know the code to.
A briefcase.
So you go up to the window, to the AO window, and you hand them your briefcase. They scan your briefcase, and they put the materials in the briefcase, and they close it. They turn it back to you, and you lock it. Then you attach the briefcase to your body. I'm not fucking
like
with
a handcuff?
You, no, like with a little clip. Like it has to be
physically connected to you.
Right. So when you go pee, you have your briefcase
coming with you.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. So you get your briefcase. They go down the hall and use your thing, and you're gonna be let into one door, and then you're gonna go into another door, and then you're gonna go into the course room. That's what it's called. So you go into the 3 doors or 2 doors, whatever it was. You sit down, you open up your briefcase, and you read the material for the first time. The answers. So my mother's sitting there in front of me. Okay, she's so excited. Understand that, like, this is what you want for your kids. Like, you're like, they're getting up the bridge and they're getting the answers to life. So when they come back next lifetime, they're not going to forget everything. They're not going to be as fucked up as they were when they were, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's really a proud moment, you know? And so my mom's sitting across from me, like, so excited. And I'm reading this, that my body is made up of other beings. My body, my whole body, my thoughts and everything are mixed in with these other beings that compose my body. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Are you following me with
Yep.
this? What's your understanding of it?
Your body's made up of other beings.
Right.
Everything.
My thumb
your
is
nails
composed
are
of
other beings. Your hair
maybe
is other
not the
beings.
nails because they're acrylic.
Okay. Your skin's other beings. Your eyes are other beings.
Everything.
Okay.
Like just here, just
right.
in there, just.
Mm-hmm.
My thumb is a person, is a being trapped into this body. Here, okay. So I read this, and the supervisor comes over and he goes, "Do you understand? I want you to draw it out.
So the supervisor has access to this information.
Yeah. He's standing there to make sure, right? So I go like this, Joe. I
go,
I don't
draw
know.
a little person.
Okay. I go, there's a bunch of beings on me like that. And I give it to him like that. Mm-hmm. And he goes, start again. I want you to read it again. And then I want you to draw another one. So I go, okay. So I did all this, and I literally did this, Joe. I made circles on every part of my body.
So for people who are just listening,
circles.
Lee's drawn a stick figure and she's drawn little circles all over the stick figure.
Right?
Right,
okay.
right.
Now these beings were like from 75 trillion years ago. They were put in volcanoes and blown up and packaged and overlord. And anyway.
Are you freaking out at this point?
I look at my mother who's sitting. Now the supervisor's standing over me. So I go, what in the fuck? This? What is this? And she's like, isn't it amazing?
So your mom was in. She was
my mother's OT8.
Right.
I go,
your mom's OT8?
Yeah.
Your mom's top of the food chain?
Yeah. Not only is my mother top of the food chain when it comes to the counseling side, my mother was top of the food chain when it came to administering Scientology, which is very rare. She was what's considered a high trained auditor.
But she hadn't read this stuff yet?
Of course she read it. She was just there to see my excitement.
Oh, I see. Okay.
She was just there as a spectator to see her daughter receive the answers.
Right. But you were super skeptical.
Right. Right. Supervisor comes over and he goes, what don't you understand? I go, I understand it. I don't love it. Like, I'm not happy. I go, I just got to tell you, I'm not happy with this is what it was. And he goes, well, you don't need to believe it. You just need to do it. So that's the answer that's given to you. You don't need to believe it. You just need to do it. So then you have.
Which, I mean, that kind of like, I can kind of see like where that comes from reading the Scientology website. Remember how they were like, they put people's practices or that people, what is it? Let me go back to it just to, I'll read it real quick. So one discovers for oneself that the principles of Scientology are true by applying its principles and observing or experiencing the results. So it's like she's supposed to take the principles that she's learned, or the thing that she's learned about the thetans, that are making up every single portion of her body. And then she's supposed to observe or experience the results by applying the Dianetic principles here. So, okay. So she's not allowed to have someone like explain it to her. That to me is weird. It's weird that like no one can like explain it to her to like give her context to, she's supposed to just show that she understands what she's read on a piece of paper. It's a very strange process to me.
You have to go and audit this. You have to go and do it on yourself. Talk to these beings on the meter by yourself.
So
that's applying through Dianetics the principles or whatever. She doesn't have to believe it. She just has to do it. And then it's like the science-y aspect, I guess, is where by auditing, by using Dianetics, by using this, this little machine where you've got like, you're like holding these Coke can things that you don't have to believe it. You just do it by applying this method. And then I guess over time you end up believing it, which is would explain why her mom, who is an OT8, would after so many years of applying this and seeing the results, might slowly believe it over time. It's interesting.
So on the meter, meaning you hold the cans. And when I say cans, folks, what they look like, it looks like soup cans. Like if you drained all the soup from a soup can and it had a string attached to it, it's connected to some.
Yeah, you could just Google what Scientology e-meter.
E-meter. Yeah. Okay. So you have to hold the e-meter and discuss this?
No, you think it.
You think it.
There's
just think it.
So now you got to go get your material. So after you've been checked out on this and they get that you get what it is, then you go back to the window and they give you your actual, what you're supposed to do with this information. So it'll say like, it'll be a piece of paper and it'll say, ask this question and then look at the meter and what the answer is. Whatever answer comes to your mind, write it down.
Huh.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So all you're doing is awakening these things to talk to them, really. Yeah. Right. And to let them go. You're basically saying like, go be free. Go.
So this is OT3?
Correct. And by the way, when I was a Scientologist and I heard that this was a story, I didn't know. So I would go to the internet and go OT3 story, but I didn't know if it was true. So I couldn't verify it.
Right.
Do you see?
And yeah, I pulled up the from the chat a minute ago, but OT means operating thetan. So I guess that's like the level that you've reached in Scientology.
Saying
Yeah.
so, most people who go, that's bullshit, because they don't know what they're looking at on the internet.
Right.
There's no one to verify it with. So if I went to my mother, let's say before I got to this level, you're told to lie to people.
Oh,
You
so
can't tell people what the answers are because they're going to get pneumonia.
they get pneumonia?
Literally will die.
Okay,
So a lot of times when I lied to the press and then they confronted me on it and said, "Why'd you lie?" I was like, "I had to save your life. I mean, I can't. I don't want to give you cancer."
So if you were about to go to OT3 and then you went online and you investigated what is OT3 and then you read a bunch of stuff about these little beings in your body and then asked your mom would have to lie to you.
She would lie to me, as she
Wow.
did. As she did.
So after you got through this,
Yeah.
what made you do 4 and 5?
Because there's always the carrot of like, just wait.
Okay, it'll
and
make
by the way,
sense.
here's what they do. They set up that you're the auditor now. So you're auditing these things in your body. You're now the boss. So they tell you, get your hat on. Like it's your job. You don't need to believe anything. You just need to audit them. So you need to do your job as an auditor. That's what they're called, auditors. People who are the ones who take you into session in Scientology.
Right.
So you feel like you're in a leadership role. So you're doing these things a favor. You know, and you're like, well, maybe it's true. I don't know. I mean, I do sometimes hear voices, you know, like, you know, you have a moment with yourself and you're like, I might be really kind of crazy. So you're like, maybe this is an answer. It's sick because it speaks to a side of you that wants answers about life, you know, and then you're like, no, this is some crazy shit, man. There wasn't even people. What? No, you know, it listen, you believe what you want to believe at the time.
Right. So does it feel to you at the moment like maybe if you just keep going,
It'll
all
get
the
better.
pieces will fall into place, then it'll make sense?
Yes.
It's like, I'm confused now, but if I contemplate this and I really think it over, eventually I'm going to receive enough information where this is all going to be like, oh.
Right.
That makes sense. I mean, because it's and when we were talking about this on the members only stream the other day, it was the oh gosh, what was it? Maybe somebody in the chat can remind me. It's a particular fallacy. I've meant to write it down in my notes, but it's the like fallacy of sunk costs, right? Where somebody has invested so much already that to walk away just feels like such a massive loss. It feels like much more of a loss than if they were to continue to invest moving forward. And yes, thank you. William Hawkins in the chat was first one to get it. It's sunk cost fallacy. That's right. So it's where somebody has already, like I said, just invested so much that it potentially takes advantage of this fallacy that people will have when they are, you know, encountering something like this. So, you know, somebody has to reach a certain level of auditing, right? They have to reach a certain operating thetan level before they can even learn about this story of Xenu and the thetans that are in, you know, encompassing someone's body, I guess. That it sounds, you know, like Leah is talking about how her initial reaction was like, what the F? Like, how is this? No, like, this is ridiculous. It's, you know, it's potentially disillusioning. But her mother, on the other hand, who is several levels up, seems completely bought into it. And it could be because it's something that has been sort of confirmed over time through this practice of Dianetics this practice of auditing herself and then seeing like, oh, like maybe, you know, maybe this is true. And I'm sort of theorizing here, right? Because I don't know what her mother's, you know, journey has been like, but I would imagine that someone could kind of get to this level with Leah, where Leah's at, and say, well, you know what, I'll continue giving it a bit of a try, but you know, like, I'm really skeptical. And then they go through this self-auditing process. And then over time, it's sort of like scientifically, quote unquote, you know, confirms this idea that these thetans sort of exist and things are getting better for them. And, you know, I can see how that sort of like can convince someone over time to buy into it. And I can also see why, it almost seems like a protective measure for this belief that is, might sound a little crazy to a lot of people that are on the outside, right? And so in order to buy into this, you first have to probably buy into the Dianetics process, right? The auditing process. So having somebody go through time and again, step by step by step, they have to, first believe that Dianetics is something that is real in order for them to eventually believe that Xenu is real as well. Like, if that makes sense. I'm rambling a bit, as I often tend to do, but I'm hoping that what I'm saying is kind of making sense as I'm sort of like piecing these things in my brain.
I was a fool. I didn't
Right.
understand.
Right. So,
Right.
for example, one time I had talked to a friend about it. I said, I heard something about some Xenu shit. She
Some Xenu shit.
pulled me into Celebrity Center so fast, into a secured room, and she handed me my ass. She said, "Don't you ever say that word outside a secured room. I'm writing a knowledge report on you." She said, "I'm writing a report on you. Swear to God, you never say that word out loud in a room that's not secured. Okay? And never say it again."
Wow.
So she wrote a report on
A
me.
knowledge report.
She wrote a knowledge report on me. I got sent to what's called ethics, which is like the Justice Department of celebrities of Scientology. And they said they brought me into another secured room because they have to get somebody who knows this information. And they said, "Never ever say this, never confirm it, never deny it, never give that information out ever. Just never discuss it. Just say, 'I've never heard of it. You sound crazy.'"
Wow.
And that's what we all say. "You sound crazy." Or, properly done, you get it, like you'll get it if it's properly done. Those people didn't do it properly. That's why they didn't understand it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Interesting. Also, a Tish in Tennessee, I see your member chat says, we'll have to watch replay too, waiting on a plane. Oh, man. Well, safe travels. I hope you fly well. But yeah, so this is, it's very, very fascinating to see how this sort of like belief kind of plays out in the religion or faith group or what have you. But one of the other things is I in the members only stream the other day, we were kind of also sort of like starting to go into like, is this a cult? Is this not a cult? And I think I still want to reach out to see if I can get someone that's an expert on cults, maybe some kind of a professor or something somewhere, because that would be an interesting topic to get into of like what is a cult? What are some of the hallmarks of a cult? How can we tell the difference? And that kind of thing. And so I think that would be very fascinating. Now I do want to, let's see. Okay. So we will do, I see you, Andy, Battlefield Earth trailer. So we will do that. And then we're going to go, actually, yeah, we'll do the Battlefield Earth trailer, and then we're going to go into just some other government reactions to Scientology, sort of like how they regard Scientology. Just like some touch points on that. So let's see here. Okay. Okay, hang on. All right. So all right. We'll see. We'll see how this works. All right, this is the official trailer number 1 to Battlefield Earth, and it is starring John Travolta. Oh wait, but before I do that, hang on. I saved this. I meant to bring it up. Colette Morris, welcome to Bike Club. I hope you enjoy being here, and I hope you can join us on Friday for the members only live stream. And yeah, thank you so much for supporting this channel. And just saw a super chat pop up from Nate the lawyer. Thanks, man. You don't have to super chat me. Still sick, but wanted to show my sister some love. Scientology is the one true religion. No, I Nate, you are a jokester. I know when you're being sarcastic by text. But thanks so much for the love. I really appreciate it. Okay, let's share my screen here. We're gonna go through this here Battlefield Earth trailer. Okay. All right. Let's do this. Hope you guys can hear it.
When we attacked your planet, all your soldiers and all their advanced technology could only put up a measly 9-minute fight before they were exterminated. Which is why man is an endangered species.
Noted Scientologist. That's interesting. Okay. So it seems like, oh, gee, Andy, what are you doing? What are you doing there, bud? So it seems like Andy is suggesting that this is the story of Xenu. Andy, correct me if I'm wrong on that. Is there, maybe there's another trailer that we can see that's going to be a little bit more illustrative. Okay, here's a different one. Let me see if this one is going to be any good. Okay, this might be different. Let's see. Okay. All right, let me share the screen. Okay. All right. So far, this is the same as before. Is this going to be the same thing? This is the same trailer. Slightly different. Okay.
When we attacked your planet, all your soldiers and all their advanced technology could only put up a measly 9-minute fight. Which is why man is an endangered species. There's nothing that will help you.
Once we finish mining out this miserable little planet, let's do the universe a favor. Let's exterminate a lot of them. If we don't take back our planet, the last of humanity becomes extinct.
Wait, I don't understand this music now. It's got a beat to it. This is interesting.
Let it be said that we took this one chance and fought.
Okay. So, interesting. So, yes, Indy says no more movie trailers. No more movie trailers. That is, I don't know if I'm ever going to see that movie. I'm not going to lie. It's doesn't look like the best quality. I think I understand now why I have never seen it. What? Puppy, you're being rude. You're being rude. You can wait your turn. I will feed you. I promise you. I will feed you. I will feed you. Oh my. Okay. Okay. So I just wanted to share really quick here to sort of like round this conversation out. Oh no. I love you. I love you. Yes. I love you. I love you. Okay. So, okay. Now this is interesting to see how some of these, and I'm going to pull up some articles. I'm not going to go into depth with these, but okay. All right, puppy. All right. Yes. I'm not going to go into depth with these articles, but I do just kind of want to pull them up to sort of give a flavor for how various governments have regarded Scientology. So Germany, this is an article from 2007. So I admittedly, I don't know what has happened since then, but It says Germany prepares to ban Scientology. Germany's interior ministers announced Friday that they consider Scientology to be unconstitutional. They have asked the country's domestic intelligence agency to prepare a dossier on the organization's activities with a view to ban it next year. So this is pretty interesting. It's talking about how they find it to be something that should not exist with our constitution, which is different than the way that the United States would handle this. What are you doing? Okay, you're slobbering on the microphone. So this is basically talking about the things that they have seen about Scientology. They are, and essentially they were looking to ban it. I don't know if it actually was banned, but the agency has had the organization under observation for over a decade. Germany does not consider Scientology to be a religion, but a money-making cult. So this is how Germany has regarded it. Moving on. Okay, then there is hey puppy. Yes. I will feed you, I promise. Okay, now this is France. French court upholds fraud charges against Scientology. So this is an article from 2012, so still an old article. Okay. Where it says a French court has rejected an appeal by the Church of Scientology upholding 2009 fraud charges and a 600,000 euro fine for convincing members into spending tens of thousands of euros. So they basically have the same sort of regard for Scientology, calling it a cult, calling it a money-making scheme, and calling it, something that really needs to be strictly regulated, if not outright banned. Now, of course, the United States regards it differently, right? In the United States, they have been given religious tax exemptions, and so they are regarded as religion. In the UK as well, let me see here. I've got another article here. Now, this is an article from 2013. So again, not a recent one. So I don't know if things have changed since then, but this is just to get a flavor. The UK Supreme Court says Scientology is a religion and allows a wedding. So UK, Australia, United States have all basically allowed Scientology as a religion, which is interesting. Also from the chat, we've got a member chat from Lynette V. So Scientology says it's science-based, but then believes that fictional books and movies are reality. Make it make sense. Yeah, there's a strange sort of blending of faith and science in this that seems to make it makes it seem like it's really neither, right? I mean, we've got the what is it? The National Library of Medicine that has an article about how it's like not really science. And then you've got these other, countries like France and Germany that say it's not really a religion. And it's because it's got this weird blending of the two. So, I find it very, very fascinating to see how these different countries have regarded this organization. So this is basically was talking about how there was a woman who wanted to get married in a chapel of the Church of Scientology in London. And then I guess she won her case at the British Supreme Court, which ruled that Scientology was a religion and that the chapel was a place where marriages could be solemnized. Interesting topic as well. But basically all of that is to say that, depending on where you are in the world, your country might regard Scientology differently. There are those who have concluded that it is a cult. There are those who have concluded that it is a religion. There definitely are some very strong warning signs in my personal opinion from what I have seen. And I am really trying to look at this objectively. I'm really trying to take whatever information I can that seems to be trustworthy information, and to be able to formulate an opinion. Now, whether I'm able to do that, obviously I'm human. I've got my own flaws. I've got my own, biases. I have my own faith, my own religion that, can inform, the way that I see the world. Everybody has their starting point that they start with, right? So I'm trying to look at this objectively, and what I'm kind of coming away from it is the more that I learn about Scientology, the more it seems to be an organization that is more often than not used to control and coerce other people. Now, how this figures into the Masterson case is we have to be mindful of the fact that we can have very strong opinions about Scientology, and still come away concluding that Danny Masterson is innocent. That is a possibility that could happen. I'm not saying that that's the case. I don't know. The trial has just begun. Opening statements, I believe, just happened yesterday. But evidence is going to be coming out. I'm very interested to continue covering this trial very closely. It is possible that also Scientology is bad and he's guilty of sin. Those are definitely both very, very possible. I'm watching you. Okay, so all of that is entirely possible. But what I want to make sure people take away, though, also is that we need to make sure that the question about Scientology, whether Scientology is good or bad, is a different question than whether or not Danny Masterson did the things that he's accused of doing, right? These are two different questions. There is some overlap in some of this stuff because of the fact that Scientology has come up in terms of the context for why these women did not come forward earlier than they did, because they talked about the coercive control. They talked about the issues of coming forward and getting excommunicated. They talked about the fact that, if they had gone to the police, they would be kicked out of Scientology and they would lose not just, their finances, but also their entire social life, everything that they know and love. Essentially, I'm sort of, recharacterizing, and hopefully I'm doing that in a fair way. But this is, I'm trying to do this as accurately as possible. It basically is to show that the reason why they came forward when they did was not so much because they concocted an allegation later on, but to say that they did so because they were held sort of in this coercive sort of state by the Church of Scientology. And the thing is, if Danny Masterson is innocent, that is a substantial weakness in his case for him to be a Scientologist, because I think that looking at this, it is very easy to look at Scientology and say that, this is something that anyone can very easily be held under control of Scientology. And, so it could be a very convenient cover for someone to come up with something. Not saying that that's what happened, but I'm just sort of looking at this from multiple perspectives of how this could play out. Catherine S., thanks again for another super chat. It says, point of clarification. In the U.S., the IRS recognizes Scientology as a church for federal tax purposes, which is not the same as saying it is an actual religion. Yeah, fair. I mean, yeah, if we want to be very nuanced about it, I think that would be correct. So thank you for that point of clarification. William Hawkins here, that's an interesting point. However, when he uses the church to interfere with judicial matters and criminal law, then he brings the church into the legal case. So how specifically he has used the Church of Scientology to interfere, I'm not entirely sure. If you're referring to the arbitration issue, that is a legal question that came up, that has been resolved. We've talked about it on this channel before, but I'm not sure if you're talking about something outside of that that I'm not aware of. I would be interested to hear about that as well. Anyway, okay. So I think that for me about does it. I appreciate all of you guys for joining me for this. I know that there's a lot going on right now on YouTube. There's a lot of like interesting trials that are other stuff that are being live streamed, like Daryl Brooks and all that kind of stuff. So the fact that folks have come in and joined us for this, I really appreciate. I appreciate everybody that's been in the chat. Also, folks that used to be members of the Church of Scientology. I really appreciate you guys giving us your context and your experiences. I know that is sometimes a bit of a scary thing because of some of the tactics that have been employed throughout history by this organization. So I really do appreciate you guys, coming, like I said, coming forward and giving your experiences and all that kind of stuff. Thanks again also to the mods as always for ushering a respectful and caring sort of dialogue in the chat. I see that every single time we come in. It's one of the things that I love about this community, Bike Club people. When I say Bike Club, usually is referring to people that are members and supporters on YouTube and Locals and Patreon. But like this community at large, I love the fact that people are coming in and engaging and sometimes disagreeing and giving various perspectives. And I absolutely love that people do that with respect and coming from, using good faith arguments, coming from experiences, coming from evidence. And it's fabulous. It's absolutely what I love to see and exactly what I want to see growing in this little corner of YouTube. So that for me about does it. If you guys want more, I'm definitely going to be talking about Masterson tomorrow on Latest in the Law, because there definitely will be updates to talk about from this trial. Probably we'll be talking about Kevin Spacey. I've got to check in on that one and see what kind of updates that are going on in that case, but there's going to be some other stuff too. I might be talking about Kanye West and the family of George Floyd as well. We'll see. So keep an eye out for details on tomorrow's Latest in the Law, also at 10 a.m. East Coast time. And otherwise, I appreciate all of you. And one more super chat from Andy. Scoundrels like me feel welcomed. Yes. We definitely want this to be a warm and welcoming environment for everybody. Even you, Andy. Okay. All right, guys. That for me about does it. And yes, I like I said, I appreciate every single one of you for being here. All right.